Yeah, the Beetlejuice one was awesome. It's funny because I just wrote a song, well, lyrics. I don't have music for it or anything, but I wrote early on when I was starting to do songwriting lyric type experimentation. I wrote one about being in the Bardo because we've fucking been in it the whole goddamn year. And I said something about how it was like the lobby in Beetlejuice or something. I can't remember what I said, but basically through the whole thing, I was like, we're in the waiting room, just like Beetlejuice, but something, it was funnier when it happened to Beetlejuice. And then at the end, I was like, but damn, it was so much funnier when it happened to Beetlejuice. And so I literally said it 3 times in the song, just like you're supposed to say. I mean, I wasn't planning it until the very end. I was like, oh my God, if I say Beetlejuice one more time, it'll be 3 times. And so I just did it. I was like, oh, this is perfect. So I need to find music for those lyrics.
Yes.
Very much like
stick it in one of our episodes.
These lyrics are like actually really bad poetry, hashtag. Like, it's not great.
A galactic purr of KKs
invites you to Space Cats Happy Hour.
Let your mind relax. We meet in a dimension outside of time,
where the playfully curious thrive.
So go on, fill your tin cup chalice with the sacred elixir of creativity. Laugh till you breathe violet flame at the theme's absurdity. And above all, let out your full-throated song with us.
Here at Space Cats Happy Hour, with the galactic purr of KKs.
My voice is my password. Verify me.
Too many secrets.
Too many secrets. Welcome to another episode of Space Cats Happy Hour. And of course, as I'm sure everyone listening immediately recognized, those were some iconic lines from the 1992 film Sneakers.
Hell yes. Oh, good opening, KK. Good opening.
Yeah, a movie about these very subversive, like idealistic hackers trying to change the world. And it's like a movie with a lot of twists and turns. And we had the idea of just talking about movies that we were really into or obsessed with in our childhoods, and then how those kind of ended up having like clues and things that relate to awakening, because that's always fun. And American KK, you had mentioned Sneakers, which I actually also very much love, even though I came to it, like I watched it when I was a kid, but I was rewatching it more as an adult. So I rewatched it again.
I own very few movies. I just can't, I don't know, we all have Netflix and like whatever, but Sneakers is one of the movies that I own and watch pretty frequently, rewatch it pretty frequently. And I actually saw it in the theater when it came out because my mom, she was a high school teacher, and like she first of all loved Robert Redford. So like I'm sure that was most of the, impetus behind like organizing a trip. But she organized a trip for like a group of students that she was teaching also. And then some of like my classmates, even though we were all like 12, 13, like when we were probably quote unquote too young, but also not really, like it was perfect for all of us because we were all just those kids that didn't really fit in, because you know how you are when you're in school, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, she organized this trip to like, it was basically all these students and we all went to see Sneakers in the theater.
That is amazing. I love that.
It was, and I was blown. I was like, what this, my whole mind was just like, I'm sure that triggered like some huge activation, just like total subconsciousness. Cause my little mind was just like, oh my God, information, ones and zeros. What the fuck? I just kept going and going, even though I didn't even know what the word anal meant. I remember asking my mom what anal meant, and she was like, let's talk about that later.
Oh, That's really funny. I have so many things to say about sneakers. I will just quickly say, because it's the top of the show, we're going to talk about these movies. We're going to talk about Death. We're going to talk about Astral information that we got. And then I am also going to share some stuff that's come through to me as an oracle as well. So stay tuned for that. But first of all, you mentioned Robert Redford. The cast of this movie is unique and interesting. Robert Redford, Sidney Poitier. Sure, of course, I can see a movie with them. River Phoenix. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Gets, like the younger generation. And of course, Dan Aykroyd.
Right. As the conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. This movie has like one of the best opening lines ever. It's like all, we're watching the glorious old computer where you're just typing in information right onto like a black or green screen. And it's like click, click, click. And then they're saying like hackery type things because, it was the early 90s. And there was like, people were like, there is nothing more powerful in the world than this very slow moving computer. But then they're like, okay, so click, click, they're doing their hackery thing. And they're like, so the Republican Party just donated $100,000 to the Black Panthers. And I was like, damn.
I know, right? Really. It was, rewatching it again, especially after I haven't seen it probably in about a year or two or whatever. I don't know, whatever. So like coming back to it after all this awakening stuff, I'm like, oh, wow. Having a whole, even though I already had a really deep understanding of it, I was like, damn, this was really activating. And I didn't.
Yeah. What were the pieces that you pulled out of it that felt connected to your awakening? Because also when you said it's the movie that you've watched over and over, that's also what I feel. It's like, sometimes it's like those movies that we just kept returning to again and again. And it was like, they were really unlocking stuff.
For me, it was a lot of just the movie in general. Everyone in the movie was just always thinking outside the box in ways that I was not. Like my family did that that's part of the reason my mom organized the trip to the theater, because that was the kind of stuff we did as family. Like we were always thinking outside the box and always in education. And like, we loved people who, would help us think outside the box and, in like classes or conferences or any of that stuff. So I was always in that kind of zone, but like knew that the world itself wasn't really like that. Like there were way fewer people that actually, so seeing a whole group of people in a room, like working together and like being, I hate the word gifted, but I don't know what else to use right now. Like that word is so loaded and weaponized, but like for lack of a better word, gifted people, just like all in a room together, like having fun and also making a living and like kind of being in secret. And like, I was like, that's what I want to do with my life. But I didn't really know that I was making those connections. And I was like, I want to be surrounded by those people, those types of people, and have this little group and do like cool, fun, secret, magical seeming things. So that in general was like very much the whole vibe of the movie for me. And I was like, that's what I wanted my life to look like. And then, well, first of all, the whole Whistler, the blind character, I honestly thought he was blind like my entire life until I saw him in another movie and realized he wasn't, but he was really good at this. Like when they like recreated the scene of like where Robert Redford had been kidnapped to, the way that he was using all of his other senses, I was like, oh my God, that is a whole other way of operating that I just knew something was there, but I didn't quite get it in the way that I do now. So that rewatching it now, I was like, oh my God, like we're all using our superpowers. And anyway, it was just a really cool, that scene has always stuck with me, like him recreating the sounds and like the cocktail party with the geese, like that just blew my mind. I was so impressed. And the other thing was that last bit about when Cosmo is like, he whatever he says at the end where he's like,
Cosmo.
I know, right? He says something about how information is the most important. Like whoever controls the information controls the world or something like that, whatever that line is. I literally watched it 2 days ago and I can't remember the line, but you know what I mean? Like whoever controls the information controls the world. And I was like, even at 12 or 13 or whatever years old, I was like, yeah, that makes way too much sense to my little 12-year-old mind. And ever since then, but even now, like after going through this awakening stuff, I'm like, it hit me in a Gandalf way, I guess. I was like, damn, we have been living through this storyline. And I also identified with Cosmo a whole lot more than I have before. I was like, yeah, bring it down, bitch, bring it down.
Yeah, because there's like this tension between these two young idealists. It starts like in the 70s and then it fast forwards to present day 90s. And then we think that one of them, spoiler alert, has died in prison because he was arrested for doing what he was doing, sending money from the Republican Party, the Black Panthers. But then it turns out he's actually been still alive, and he's been like putting together this secret network that has like finally got access to this code breaker. So now he wants to use it to like collapse this. He's like, if Jessa had the code breaker, he's like, let's collapse everything. And then like Robert Redford ends up landing more on the side of like, oh, well, that could cause a lot of harm. It's like that tension. For me, what really stood out watching it was just like getting the keys to the universe, you know, like that, which is information, of like that thing where you're like behind the scenes, because you're like you're a little bit in the shadows, as it were, but you have the keys to change everything. And it's all about deciding what to do with that, and just like feeling into what feels good and like what reality you want to see.
Exactly.
I love it. It's also very funny. Like it's really a good comedy. Like it's solid comedy writing, which I really appreciated, and character development. And
yes, I totally agree.
Very endearing characters.
Yeah. They have stayed with me. Oh man, have they really stayed with me? That whole thing was fucking great. I'm so glad you watched it again, because you got me to watch it again, and that felt really nice.
Yeah, and like it's interesting to think of like you being both Cosmo and Bishop. Martin Bishop is Robert Redford's character, like being like both of those, embodying both of those perspectives.
Yes.
Like you having a conversation with yourself. It's like,
For
burn
sure.
it all down right now. And then like,
well, let's keep people safe and
let's keep people
also
safe. Exactly.
don't want suffering, but also money isn't real, motherfuckers.
Yeah, a lot of great gems in that movie. And it just had that. There's something really to be said about the movies of the 80s and early 90s that had, I think there were some people channeling stuff behind the scenes of like there was like a movement, an optimism, an expansiveness, and like a don't take things too seriously as well.
Yes.
That was a really great energy. And I think it was important for our generation to be exposed to that as children.
For sure. Yes. I love that channeling behind the scenes vibe, because like I wasn't aware of it consciously, but going back and watching some of these things, I'm like, wow, yep, that was a breadcrumb. That was a breadcrumb.
Yeah, so many breadcrumbs. It's so fun. I will just briefly talk about one and then jump more into the other. And I'm not really going to talk about these movies too much, but I'll bounce off of them. But one for me that I watched again and again was Bird on a Wire, which is this like Mel Gibson, Goldie Hawn action comedy thing. And I actually, when I was a teenager, I remember somebody told me I looked like Mel Gibson. It was like the first celebrity someone ever told me I looked like. I haven't gotten like a huge amount of celebrity comparisons, but it really stuck with me.
Wow.
Of course, now, he's got a lot of we have a lot of different associations with him. But the thing about Bird on a Wire is there's also a real undercurrent of idealism to it. And Mel Gibson is like this Vietnam War draft dodger, or maybe he was in the war and then he I forget, but like he was anti-Vietnam War. And then he had to go into the witness relocation program because of something that he saw. And so he's like living all of these different lives. So it has like this whole multiple incarnations aspect to it. And it's like this big adventure. And then one of the lives is like funny because like one of the lives he was a hairdresser. And so then he was like gay in that like, when he was in like that city being that hairdresser. I just like the idea of like, it's like, no, you could just be a hairdresser. It's like, no.
Full out.
My persona in this life must be gay. Which I think is very like interesting for its time, rewatching that movie. Also, it has a ton of huge cats in it, which is like very mildly, like it ends in this whole scene with all of these tigers and panthers and stuff. They end up in this weird zoo that he used to work at. And then the people are like tracking him down and nothing bad happens to the tigers. But the tiger, like one of the tigers does end up killing one of the men who's after him, which is very satisfying. You're like, aha, triumph of the tiger. But the movie starts, the opening credits, and it goes on for a really long time. So I was listening to this again and again because I watched this movie so many times. It's like the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that song was like coded into me. Like whenever I heard it, I would get excited because I loved the movie so much. And I loved, anyway, say whatever. Like I really loved the chemistry between
Yeah.
Mel Gibson and Goldie Hawn in that movie. Goldie Hawn is hilarious.
Love her so much. Now I can totally see Mel Gibson when I'm looking at you. I'm like, oh man, this is cool. I don't know. It's like the dark.
You have to see me with like, I had really long hair and it was the era of Braveheart.
Yeah.
So
I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah. At the time I was like, oh, there's also like weird, speaking of past life, because there's more connections there with past lives and Mel Gibson, which I won't get into right now.
Oh.
Yeah. Then the other one that I watched over and over again, especially one summer, I think like the summer I was like 7 or 8, I just watched it because it was like the only movie that we had that we didn't rent. Like we owned it for some reason. I think a friend gave it to me. So it just like, I was like, if I needed a movie, I would just pop it in. Beetlejuice.
I have a framed photo of, or an artwork of Lydia and Sarah from Labyrinth. They're both of my, and they're right. Both of them are under my, or above my place where I meditate. I am strange.
I love that.
I myself am strange and unusual. Oh, I'm so glad you watched Beetlejuice so many times. That was such a good movie.
Yeah. And the name, when I started my awakening, all this galactic stuff would just come to me. It would come to me in dreams or visions, or like the art that I was making. I would be like, why am I drawing like this pyramid and this thing? And then it would like show me all this stuff. So it was really cool. But one of the things was, of course, like Orion, and like Betelgeuse is part of the Orion constellation. And I think that is very interesting too, because there's so many of us who came, like have aspects of ourselves that went through the Orion Wars and are like processing and like clearing that. So I thought that was really like, what a random name for him, right? Like, yeah. So it's like, I feel like so many of these movies were just little activators for us.
Breadcrumbs all the way. I was going to rewatch Bird on a Wire because I hadn't seen it in years, because you were talking about it, how you were going to maybe talk about it this time. And I had full intentions of doing it. And then I got distracted because I saw Free Guy, and I watched Free Guy 5 fucking times in 2 days. And I am not exaggerating. I was like, I cannot watch it.
Yeah.
It was not just a breadcrumb. It was a whole fucking, I texted you. I was like, it is a whole slice of bread. This is such an activation. And I didn't even, the trailers I saw for that movie were just not great. They were fine, but they did not watch me. Yeah, they did not make me want to watch the movie. And I only watched it because my neighbor was like, come over, we're going to watch it and get high and whatever. So I did it because I was like, fuck it, why not? And as soon as I saw it, with someone else, I was like, I bought it. I came home and immediately bought it and watched it 4 more times.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So good.
Just to return to Beetlejuice for a second, what you're talking about, the waiting room, is perfect segue to what I got, which was kind of a download and kind of like a finally just understanding in my bones what other people had been saying, these like pieces of the puzzle that came together for me that have to do
segment, downloads in progress.
Yeah, downloads in progress, exactly. AKA loose ends. So, if you think of Beetlejuice, they find out they're dead and suddenly they don't know the rules. And then there are all these rules and like, they're just grappling with all of these new restrictions. Here they are in this realm and they can't do what they used to be able to do. And they can only do a few things. And it's, very restrictive. So basically, like, I guess it was 2020 when I first started hearing Noah from Synchronicities. Just he would occasionally mutter on the podcast, like, oh, we're all dead and this is dead planet. And then not say anything else. And I would get like a really creepy feeling when he said it. And then just like you just literally mentioned, and I've heard other people mention about us being in the Bardo or the Underworld, the place between life and death. So I got this like, I hadn't slept at all last weekend. And then suddenly it was all coming together. And I was just thinking about that aspect of the restrictions, because finally Noah elaborated one day. He was like, well, it's more restrictive here on this earth. And so I was thinking about that. Like if you're a ghost, it's like our what we perceive as ghosts. So how we think of ghosts is these kind of like fragments of our selves that are still in this realm, but are like much more restricted and can't do much. And if you think about human beings on Earth, when we're like completely unconscious to our vast unity consciousness powers, we're basically that's us. We live with these restrictions. I even picture us sort of blipping in and out of other astral realms, but like kind of haunting them, because it's like we kind of like get in there a little bit and we're like, and it's like, but then we can't do much until we remember and learn more about our connectedness and our power. And so it's like, right. So basically, there's infinite versions of Earth and infinite ways to exist on Earth, but the one we're in right now is an existence of death. As always, I will say that this download is working for me right now. If it doesn't resonate with you, forget it. That's fine. And it doesn't apply to you, but it's not meant to be universal, but it's really working for me right now. So consciousness, our eternal consciousness goes through so many experiences and experiences so many things. And so it needs to rest and heal and process from those experiences. It needs a place in quotes to do that. And so what is that but death? Because death is essentially like sleep, and sleep is where we go to rest and restore and heal and process things. So we've got this consciousness that puts itself into this sleep death mode of existence on Earth to be able to do that. And that is why things can feel so heavy on this planet and the way that we're living, because we're like processing so much heavy shit here. So it's all reflected in this beautiful underworld. Both KK and I had recently read this incredible description of the Hindu goddess Matangi, who lives in the underworld, and her thing is that she feasts on those things that we consider to be like unclean and remind us of our animalness and are like have the specter of death in them. So sickness, things to do with sickness and death and like the body and menstrual cycle and stuff. And she feasts on all of that stuff and alchemizes it. And she's also connected with nature and wisdom and art. So it's like this beautiful transmuting. And then KK had started to have these beautiful downloads about how the underworld is this lovely place that we misunderstand and we kind of project hell dimensions onto it. And so I was thinking about that and I was like, what's a beautiful place that's full of fill? It's like, well, the earth right now. That is the earth. That is, we are in this beautiful, beautiful place that is just clogged with so much heaviness and filth because we're in that alchemizing process. And then I was also thinking about how a lot of people in the Soberish group have had these horrible nightmares that just haunt them of these really graphic, vivid zombie apocalypse. And they've expressed concern, like, is this like a prophecy of what's coming? So then again, in this moment, I was like, no, that is a remembrance of things like Atlantis, because as Jessa described, in the 1,000 years leading up to Atlantis, people went from being conscious to becoming unconscious. And then there were those who were like still conscious while everyone around them was becoming unconscious. And that is what a zombie is. A zombie is a living dead person walking around and infecting other people. So that's exactly what was happening, but it was just in terms of consciousness, which also brings me to another aspect of this, which is that we're experiencing this underworld dead version of Earth and ourselves right now. And then we're having this opportunity to do this beautiful thing, which is instead of having to go through the process of physical death to experience that transformation back into our actual conscious, more alive selves, we're going to get to do it in our physical bodies. And it's just so exciting and uplifting. And it took me a few days. I was like, why is it important for me to realize that this is a dead Earth and we're all dead? Like, why is that lens helpful? And what I realized was it's the first time that anything has actually shifted my own perspective on death and dying in that process. And it just hit me like a thunderbolt. It's like, if you are already dead, the worst has happened. Worst always, using that framework, but like, what is there to be afraid of? You are literally you're already a zombie. You're already a ghost. You're already dead. You're already in the underworld. The underworld is a beautiful place to become friends with. And you're going to get to go through this amazing process of coming back to life. But like, why? Like, you're going to be like fully aware as you do it.
Wow.
And then, and then the final piece of the puzzle was because I'd been simultaneously obsessing over why we have to go to sleep each night for 8 hours. And then I was like, well, of course, because death is actually like this form of sleep for our expanded consciousness, like our expanded consciousness is out there in a million ways doing a million things. So it doesn't need this unbroken constant cycle of death. So what we do when we go to sleep at night is like we actually connect with that part of ourselves that's more expansive. So it's like this beautiful, like,
Wow.
coming back to life a bit more and in our expanded consciousness. And then we wake up and we're in the underworld and we're doing our dead thing, which is also beautiful, which is also, I think, why some of us are having all these disruptions to our sleep cycle, because our relationship to physical sleep in 3D reality is probably going to shift. The more we become conscious, the less we're going to need to go off and have 6 to 8 hours of sleep to connect with those things. And like everything's going to shift. So that was my birthday present for my 40th birthday was, congratulations, you're already dead. So enjoy it and enjoy coming back to life. Enjoy your resurrection.
Enjoy your happy birthday. Enjoy your resurrection. What a fucking, I will drink to that.
Yes. Cheers.
Wow, KK, that's fucking amazing. That sleep thing also kind of triggered me. That was a lovely thing for you to share with me, because I have been very much freaking out about sleep lately in a way that feels cartoonish. The way you talked about it this time actually helped me. I think it downloaded the rest of the way for me too. Cause like I almost got it when you were telling me about it earlier. I was like, this makes like 99% sense. And I was like, I need like one question or something that triggers that last, this time you Gandalfed me, which sounds really dirty, but anyway, it makes a whole lot of fucking sense. And yeah, that sleep thing really helps me because I've had sleep problems my entire fucking life. And I know that's not uncommon, but like it feels there's a desperation to it right now that I'm not used to dealing with. And I don't know where it's coming from. And I know it's like a symptom of a bigger thing that I'm about to transmute. And I've been panicking because I'm terrified that it's going to be scary to transmute it and that I'm going to have to do something really that feels awful for me to transmute it, but like it'll be worth it. But like, I don't want to do that awful thing, whatever that awful thing is. Like, that's just what it feels like. And I am now that you said this, I can breathe because I think it's going to be a natural thing. And it's not going to be, there might be a little bit of discomfort maybe here and there or whatever, but I feel like because I've been screaming at my higher self, like this better motherfucking be ease and joy only. I am not fucking doing this suffering around sleep. I have done enough of this shit. This has to be easy and joyful. I can't. And so now that you said this, I think that's my higher self's message to be like, calm the fuck down, bitch. It's going to be natural. It's going to be fine. And I'm like, okay.
Well, it weaves together so many things because it's this, and I just like, again, for many, many of us, we're so entrenched in operating in what we refer to as masculine energy of like schedules and structure and doing and accomplishing and being productive and what a day requires from us and the demands of capitalism. And we're being so pushed. I think there is a part of it that is uncomfortable because we're being so pushed to break out of that. And I get panicky when they mess with my sleep. And this week, I've really been like, I have to let go because I throughout the whole awakening, I've been like, yeah, everything's okay as long as I get my required amount of sleep, because that is non-negotiable for me. But I was creating a big resistance and block there. And so this week I've been trying to just say like, okay, if I'm going to have a night where I have 3 hours of sleep, then I'll just have to adjust my day to that in accordance. And that is the big clump of discomfort and how that fits into like income and day jobs and like parental thing. I know everybody, like there's so many things, but this is what we're being pushed to just really be gods about, is just completely reevaluating, because they don't want us to stay in those boxes. They don't want us to stay in the box that says, if you get no sleep, then you're fucked because you have to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, if you get no sleep, you better be prepared to like push off your duties for that day or expect help from the universe to get things done or expect help and support from the universe in finding a way to recharge your battery. Like I haven't found it yet, but I'm sure infinite things exist, right? That'll like possibilities. And I think it is quite a bit of a shakeup to go through it.
Yeah, that's what I have been feeling. And I have had my resistance is it is like a mountain. I can't, like, I will not even entertain, like even going to the edge of that mountain. I'm like, nope. The panic is just like, it paralyzes me into like not even thinking about it anymore. And I know that's the push, and it makes me nauseated. Like it's that much of a block for me. I am nauseated.
And I think all we have to do is take little steps toward, like, and then we'll find the support. But it's very challenging. It's very challenging. And even though my schedule is already relatively flexible, like on that Monday, I had to postpone. I had a session, and it was the first time I've ever postponed a session. And, I just like said to the person, like, I did not sleep enough. I will not be at good capacity. I cannot do that. And they were perfectly nice about it. But I was like, and it brought up money stuff. Cause I was like, well, what if I have to reimburse this? But, like it brought up all the things. And I know I'm doing it in a very relatively easy way compared to many, but hopefully, everybody who's like working at hacking it releases some of the web for the others. So hopefully that will ripple out nonetheless. And I know there are people like doing it in a more hardcore way, and props to them all. I send love and blessings. Yeah, it's very like, this is the time. This is the big shakeup. I also feel like that death download, it's about really releasing that fear of death and seeing things in our external reality as opportunities and triggers. So, for example, the thing that's currently floating around in the news that it really feels to me like, are we gonna fall for this again? Like another opportunity to like double down on our fear of death and restrict ourselves more, or are we gonna? And I have a feeling, I don't know if it's with this variant or another one, but I do have a strong feeling that we're gonna break out. I feel like there's like a collective timeline jump that's coming that's really interesting. And actually that segues into me finally sharing some prophecy oracle stuff that's been coming to me, and that I keep going in my head and being like, but timelines are fluid and I don't know, like the future is not determined. And meanwhile, I just keep getting these like visions and signs and dreams, and it's like, just share them. Who cares? Timelines are fluid. The future's not determined. I got some information.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the first one that relates to me feeling like we're going to do this collective timeline jump, because a lot of us are going to just clear a lot more layers of that fear of death, and it's going to result in a collective timeline jump. But I went down to this river that's near me, and I wanted to try scrying with the water because I've been getting messages about scrying. So I was like, okay, I'm going to look in the water and ask questions. So the pandemic, there's an unreleased episode where I already described a dream that I had in 2019, in early December 2019, that completely foretold the pandemic and its connection to the awakening. But also around that time and very early into 2020, I was hearing so many sirens everywhere, just siren. Like I would go outside and it would be like, and I was like, whoa, what is this telling me? What? And it was telling me that there's a pandemic coming. There's going to be a lot of, and I think actually it's happened throughout that with the waves. I've gotten that again, because it doesn't follow the actual pandemic. The number of sirens does not correspond in a way that makes sense to what's going on. So I was by the water and I was looking at it and I was asking what 2022 held. And one thing that was really interesting, they showed me right away, was the water was all rippling together in this like woven way with all of these little streams going into each other. So I was like, okay, we are like weaving together so many timelines. It's going to be like so much timeline navigation in 2022. And then it was like, I was just really focused on that. And then I started hearing an ambulance siren passing by where the river was. And I was like, for me, like just auditory sensory processing stuff too, like the sirens are a real trigger for me. So I was like, ugh. And I heard it and it was like, woo, woo. And then it just like literally stopped like right beside kind of where I was. And then the water got really calm. And I was like, okay, we're hopping off the pandemic timeline. That there's going to be a change. This is also like, this is what Jess has been saying to the person who, there was like a psychic, Sylvia Brown, who way back in early 2000s predicted the pandemic. She was like, there's going to be a big, huge respiratory virus that's going to come in 2020. It's going to affect the whole world, and it's going to leave in 2022 in this surprising way. So
interesting.
So that felt for me like a real confirmation with the sirens.
Yeah.
Then there was a lot of movement. Now, I know that for me personally, that's like physical travel, but I think it's also more at a collective level. We're going to see more movement again because of that, whatever happens, whatever shift takes place. And I don't know if that's like literally like the pandemic will disappear, or it'll just be like, we're done paying attention to it in the same way of like having it have that grip over us. But then I'd had this other vision, and it was all the statues. This was another day, all the statues on Easter Island, the heads. And yeah, it was cool. And I don't know anything about those statues. So the first thing I saw the heads, and then I saw these women with long hair dancing around them with like garlands, like a ritual. And I heard Polynesia. And I was like, oh, is there any connection between Polynesia and Easter? I was like, oh, it's a Polynesian island. I found it after. So I was like, oh, cool. So I had that vision, and then I went back into it to see what it was trying to tell me. And they said that those heads, those big stone heads, are like contain these really old earth spirits.
I feel like I knew that, but I don't know how I knew that.
After getting this download, I went and watched a little YouTube documentary, and the people that build them said that they were doing it for these ancestral spirits. So it was a real confirmation. I was like, okay.
Oh, I have no idea how I knew that. Maybe it was a Gaia show or something. No, it wasn't a Gaia. I don't know how I know that, but that is
maybe you just knew it.
Oh my God. Am I just having a deja vu? Anyway, it doesn't fucking matter, but okay.
I feel like you probably just knew. I mean, it came to me in a vision. It maybe just was like a knowing that you had.
Didn't you?
It was like, there's these very old spirits. And this is just a side note for the prophecy, but it was interesting because it was reminding me that there's spirit in everything, in nature and everywhere, and that they really enjoy playful, fun, musical, dancing rituals. It's like when you do a ritual, you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for nature as well. They were like, we miss that. We miss like having these women dance around us. It was really lovely. And then I saw them like topple over or crack, and that was the release of the spirits. I don't know how much of this is like metaphorical or literal, but it was like when they topple over or crack, that is a really positive omen that things are shifting with the earth. And there's what came to me watching this Wheel of Time series, which is like this fantasy novels. And in that fantasy novels, there was like different ages. And in one of the ages, they had a huge battle with this figure, the dark one, who's like Satan, kind of figure. And they sealed him away, and there were 7 seals. And then in this series, it's like when the 7 seals break, that's what's going to bring about the last battle with the darkness, whatever. And so it was kind of connected. It was like a similar thing. It's like when they crack open, it's kind of the shit is hitting the fan, but it's really positive because that's the collapse, So I'd already had that vision of that happening. And so as I was watching the water and then the ambulance sirens thing, then I was like walking around, and then afterwards I started to think about those Easter Island heads again, and then immediately a siren started up again. So again, this really for me like aligns with what stuff that Jess has been saying, which is like we are going to shift out of the pandemic, but we still need the collapse to happen, so it's going to happen in other ways. I do think certain natural disasters are coming. I don't think it's going to be as bad as whatever. And I don't think there's any reason to be afraid. And then now that takes me to like my first set of oracle visions, which was like the dinosaurs are back. Dinosaur energy is back on Earth. And it always shown as like this big stomping the size of a continent. And it's like stomping over the continent and startling everybody. So these beautiful dinosaur energies, which we once were, are coming back, and they're shaking things up. And in that original one, I asked if people needed to like get away from cities or different places and it said those who need to move will move. So don't worry, you'll get a really strong if you need to move somewhere, and if you're not, then you need to be there, and you're going to be exactly where you need to be, and you'll be protected.
Interesting.
I can't remember from more from that first one. It was very, it was like, yeah, it's going to be a shakeup, but the earth is fine. The earth is doing, we don't need to, I think I asked, like, what do we need to do for the earth or something? And it was like, don't worry about the earth. She's got it covered. Yeah.
It kind of feels like with the cracking of the heads and the return of the dinosaurs, because I know we've both seen ourselves in visions as different dinosaurs. And then when you just said shake up like that, I was like, oh, because for some reason I was kind of picturing not necessarily actual dinosaurs coming back, but like I was wondering how that showed up in like what we would see in the real world. Like, am I going to turn back into my dinosaur self? Like, I don't fucking know. I just was curious. And now that you were saying shake up, I was like, oh, that's what we're doing. Literally, we are shaking up we are the guardians who are here shaking up the matrix, causing the collapse, blah, blah, all that stuff. And that the cracks in the Polynesian island heads statues, those were the release of the guardian spirits to come back and like do more, which is why it doesn't feel like a bad thing that they're cracking in this vision of yours. Cause it's like, oh, here come the big guns. We good. Earth is
There's
fine.
887 of them, which I found was an interesting number. I was like, oh, that is cool. I had no idea. I thought there were like 6.
Yeah. I was like, are there 7? I didn't know.
Yeah. And they are massive. This documentary too, it was like trying to figure out how the people and I was like, yeah, this is because like there's things happening to me. So they're like huge things.
Didn't one already crack or fall over or something happened or like there's like maybe I should stop bringing up shit I don't know how to talk about, but I feel like
I'll
this
have to look that up. That's so cool.
It was something happened where it was like due to like, colonialism related shit, like something climate change or like development of the land or something. I cannot remember.
That's very interesting. I found my notes, so I will just say, yes. So the earth will heal, and they showed me a sea turtle. In terms of like right-wing politician agenda, it was like they are nothing. They have no power. I asked, how can we protect the land? Dinosaurs will return to protect the land. That's us, baby. How can we protect the human race? The human race is divine. Those who need to move will move. The dinosaur stomping around, people will be startled or scared by the dinosaur energy.
But there's nothing to fear. We're here to actually make things better. Interesting. What was the dinosaur you saw yourself as again?
I definitely associate with Triceratops, but there was also one where I was eating from a higher tree. So probably one of those cute long necked ones.
I saw myself as a T-Rex.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
Which is, I really think there are those of us that hold more destructive energy in them to like, there's like a real balance of people across the spectrum with what we hold. And there are those who hold really, really important destructive energy. I was just working with somebody and talking to them about how important their destructive energy was to support the change and the collapse. But for me, I think I've just been like really reflecting on that arsenal energy. For me, there's a way that you can become so at peace with the world exactly as it is, and it is perfect exactly as it is. But then it's like within that peace is a resistance to change and collapse. And then there's also a way that you can have so much energy of bringing the change and collapse that you're unable to find any peace with what is, and you're always resisting. Mm-hmm. Bringing that resistance energy. So it's like finding that balance. It's really all about getting comfortable with constant change and fluidity so that you're able to accept what is, and then also
yes,
accept the change that's going to happen and stuff.
That's a sweet spot that is really, it's been difficult for me to find. I think I'm much more comfortable there than I used to be, but I'm still figuring out the balancing act on that for myself. Cause I'm like, oh, wow, this is not, it's just not always comfortable. And that's fine. Cause that has not been the world we've lived in. It's been very much one way and that's it. And
yeah,
now, like we're all over.
Integrating and bringing together these incredibly polarized, disparate energies in oneself. It's like that's the whole challenge that we set ourselves. It's really cool.
Yeah. And I've been like so nervous about arsenal energy because I feel before I really understood what this stuff was, I would always just beat myself up because like I wasn't the one that wanted to go to protests or like burn things to the ground or whatever. I was like, what is wrong with me that I don't have that energy? Like, it's not that I don't want things to change, but it's like I was afraid of the conflict or whatever. And I'm now realizing it's okay. It's not that I don't have Arsenal energy. I just direct that energy towards myself and my insides. And then the people who are here to do that in the external world are doing that. And that's, that is to be celebrated. And I'm here to be more of like the sweeper upper, like the picker up of the pieces, the, healer, the record keeper, whatever. And then but it's not that I don't have access to that energy. I just use it in a different way and in a more personal way. Because if we were all here to, be external about it, only one thing would happen. We need to balance people doing different.
Well, it's again, to go with the feminine, masculine, it's the feminine Arsenal energy just allows things to fall apart without resisting. And the masculine Arsenal energy is like taking action but like we've very much been steeped in the masculine Arsenal energy, and also just unconscious Arsenal energy, like we're not fully conscious, that has like can bring a lot of inner pain and turmoil and a lot of stuff. So we're working through so many things in our relationship to Arsenal energy. And I have gone to protest and I have very much participated in that, but it was never a good fit for me emotionally, energetically, and allowing myself to let go of that and just trust that that's not actually my purpose right now. And my purpose is quite different from that. It's like, it's a real process. There's a lot of like letting go of guilt, shame, blah, blah, blah.
Oh yeah. That was a hard one for me too. One of the easier battles, but still hard. Like, I feel like I've been through so many hurdles, and that was comparatively, when I got to that point of, I don't actually have to be that person and feel like I don't have to feel bad about not being that kind of person. That was a revelation that came with a little bit more ease and joy than I was probably expecting in comparison to the other things I've had to sort of root out of my programming. But it was still a struggle because I'd spent so many years judging myself for not being good enough, quote unquote.
Well, yeah, because I would be like, okay, I don't have to go. It doesn't really do anything. It doesn't help anything when I go to these protests, or like it no longer helps. And then I would feel in myself that relief of like, okay, so nothing really too outrageous has to happen. That like there was that part of me that was like, okay, so then everything can just kind of not change too much and just go back to like quietness that doesn't actually exist, but that what I'm comfortable with, which is this, And so that is where the inner tension would come for me, was like, I could sense that was part of it, was like, just like, oh, okay, well then we don't have to do all this like fuss. And it's like, no, there's still going to be chaos. There's still going to be all sorts of opportunities and discomfort and blah, blah, blah to like move through, and, big emotions and high contrast experiences, but I just don't have to like participate in the way that doesn't align with my soul.
Exactly. That's the whole key to all of this stuff. These are all opportunities for us to get in touch with what we're actually being told by our bodies is our natural blueprint for being here. And we don't have to be like anyone else. And we hear those words so often throughout our lives, but like we've still been trained to be like, to fit into a box or to fit into society, to be not rejected and that kind of thing. So we think we have to be one way, even though we're told, there's very big dissonance there. And we are now just very much like being strongly invited. Seems a polite way of saying it, but still with the amount of pressure it actually is. But we're being invited to like actually get in touch with our bodies. And we know why we're here. We know what resonates with us, but we're so used to ignoring that. We're getting back in touch with, oh no, I actually know what's true for me and no one else can tell me. And even if it feels uncomfortable because it doesn't fit what I've been told I should do or be or feel, we have to sit with that discomfort. And we don't have to, but it's going to be easier if you do, because it'll pass through you faster and kind of, you'll get over the discomfort better, or easier. But
so I talked so much, and I'm very happy now to stop yammering on and listen to you describe some astral information and experiences and knowledge that you've come to recently.
Dude, I love when you talk. Are you kidding me? I'm just sitting here like, keep going, keep going. But okay, I know what you mean. Okay, well, I had an astral. So I don't even know how to get into this. This is like, I don't know, just as part of like my exploration of what the fuck am I? What am I here to do? All the motherfucking things, all these different energy sessions we all go to and do for each other. You had done an astral reading with someone, and it sounded so fascinating to me that I booked an appointment with the same person and got one. What was it? Week or whatever.
Shanna Warwick.
Yeah.
So good.
It was really, really good. And when she did mine, I think a lot of it came through really, like, she was getting so much that some of it almost didn't make sense to either of us, because she was like, oh my God, this is all coming in really fast. And so she would talk as fast as she could, but like some of it, I think my guides were just giving her an overwhelm. Yeah. But I've been curious about this astral stuff because I know my dreams have been getting a whole lot more intense and detailed and fun and interactive and timeliney type stuff. And it's just, I want to get more in tune with that so that I can do it more consciously. Like right now, I feel like I'm kind of catching up, like behind the curve. Like I'll take my dream notes in the morning and I'll be like, wait, what? And I know that there's a way for me to consciously participate in the time. So basically lucid dreaming is what I'm talking about. And so part of this astral reading was like, what do you do when you go to sleep? You know, where do you go in the astral realm and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So my astral doorway was pretty lacy type, like grid work type patterning. So clearly I do a lot of grid work in my sleep. And
ooh,
I know, right? So much sense. And she said that she kept seeing me as like a really large child, like not like like an actual child-sized child, but like a huge child or even baby. And I would like somersault out the door. I was so excited to get out the door. I wasn't just walking. I was like somersaulting and so happy. She was like, she saw me so excited, like as this child me. She was like, you can make toys if you want to. Like right now you just made a bunny rabbit because you could make a rabbit, and now you're acting like
my God.
So it's very, very playful. And so as soon as she said rabbit, I was like, okay, that's showing up for a reason. And I was like, immediately my mind was like, follow the white rabbit, or, you know, go down a rabbit hole, or, you know, it was I was like, thank you, inner child, for showing me all the good stuff. Yeah. I'm apparently very excited to get out the door astrally when I fall asleep, just because it's fucking fun. And reading after reading after reading for me has, and we've talked about it even between ourselves on the podcast, just as personal downloads we're getting. We need to have some fucking fun. We need to anchor in the joy, because we're leaving behind the game of suffering and bringing in the one of joy. But it's just, this transition sucks so bad. It's a little bit difficult to kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, this reading also was very much like, bring in the joy. You already have it. You just need to embody it in quote unquote real waking world. So she kept saying things like collage pieces. She was like, your guides are like showing you putting together things as a child, like collage pieces. And I was like, I don't remember doing collage type stuff as a kid. Like it didn't make sense. But as she kept going, she was
literally making a collage that relates to what you say right now.
I cannot wait to see this.
But keep going.
No, because this is interesting, because she kept saying something. Oh, she was getting a lot of music stuff too. She was like, "Are you tied in with music?" And I was like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, yeah, that's a whole lot." If you listen to our last episode where I go into the trauma of being a music major and like how I couldn't listen to music since I graduated college. You know, all this. Anyway, so it's been a thing, but I've also gotten downloads that I'm supposed to be a fucking songwriter. And I'm like, okay, well, how the fuck does that work? Like, what the shit? And so she was like, all she was getting were like music and collage imagery. And I was like, oh my God, it fucking hit me. Gandalf came back in and I was like, do you mean producer? And she was like, yes, they're saying, yes, she gets it. And I'm like, oh my God, of course you're taking different pieces. Oh my God. So I don't know again what to do with all this, but it made so much sense that I was like, yeah, we're going to need to talk about this, because it just makes too much sense about what I already know, what I'm supposed to, you know, quote unquote, supposed to be doing. And like, anyway, so I'm supposed to have fun with this. And she was seeing things so clearly. Like as I was walking, like my feet were black and white, you know, music sheets have black notes on white paper. Like it was just super duper, like you are supposed to be doing music shit. So I'm like, well, anybody want to do a music collaboration? Because I have no idea where to start. Anyway, the other thing that came up was one of my ancestors showed up. And so I know I was talking to Canadian KK before we actually pushed record about another vision I'd had about the same ancestor, but it was a vision after this reading. So this ancestor, they weren't giving her any information because they wanted me to get it myself in meditation or trance or whatever. So they were literally not going to give me the answer in this reading through Shanna because they were like, bitch, do it yourself, which I appreciate.
Right.
I was like, honestly, thank you for like trusting me that I'm strong enough to do that, which I've been working through the doubts in my own self. And so I appreciated that little boost. And so anyway, but this ancestor of mine was coming through to say, look for the gold. And I think the ancestor showed up for me in a very androgynous way, but I'm just saying they for now. Anyway, they were wearing their golden threads around their neck for some reason. And we couldn't get an answer why that was a thing. Like not everyone wears their golden threads around their neck, but like, I think it was probably just to show me something, like maybe what it looked like. I don't know. So in my timeline weaving stuff that I've now uncovered that I can do, priests of time shit. What is even happening in this life? We live in such a magical world. Okay. Anyway, so I'm sure that they connect somehow, but right now for me, they're separate pieces. The music stuff is clearly a huge chunk of thing. The timeline, golden thread weaving stuff is clearly its own huge chunk of thing. And I need to, I don't know, like, I don't know what it's supposed to look like yet, but I know that I work with timelines in these golden threads. The other thing and the last thing I'll say about this is that you had mentioned earlier in this thing about the like making noise, dancing, singing, like the ritual of all that and how we've gotten out of doing that. And so the ancient spirits that are coming back love when we do this stuff. And so part of this reading was my ancestors coming in and saying, they love when I make noise. They love when I talk. They love hearing my voice. And this ancestor that came through, the one that was showing me the golden threads, they were wearing like a purpley gray outfit, which is one of my colors. And they came through because I walk like them or I move like them. And so there's like some connection between us. And it also means to like keep talking, keep singing, keep having fun, keep dancing, bring this through in a very joyful fucking way and musical way. And everything is music. Period. In my opinion, everything is music. All vibrations, the universe is it's music. So I know that I have this huge music tie. I do have some answers, but again, all the answers brought up a whole lot more goddamn questions. Oh, I know the other one last thing about this ancestry that came through. Apparently they came through from my maternal grandmother's side, which is Scottish side. And in another reading I had a previous life as a fairy in Scotland. So I'm like, what is that? Again, lots of answers, but way more questions. So that was my astral reading. And and then the end of the reading was like, astral hygiene sort of tips on like how to, sleep better and clean up your energy and all that stuff, which, get your own reading and do all that. But it was a really cool.
Get your own reading.
Your own reading. Because I meant that in like a.
No, it was just cute. I know you did. Yeah, it was.
The advice will probably be different for everyone, but like it did come out kind of shitty. So yeah, that was, I know that you said something about a collage piece that was.
Yeah. Well, it's not quite finished, but so yesterday was my birthday, December 2nd, born on the same day as Britney Spears. And that's also a story for another episode because there's a lot of stuff that ties in there for Britney freeing herself.
Yes.
But I started doing this collage because I'm working on children's books, and part of what I'm supposed to do, which is like so joyful to me, is make children's books. And so I had recently found this beautiful store that I never knew was like right nearby. And it has these old vintage books, including children's books. And I bought this one because I thought the illustrations were so beautiful. And then it was full of these fable-y poems. And I started reading it and they were hilariously like bleak and judgmental. It's like the fox and the plague and like the fool. It was just, everything was like really like, so I was like, I really like this book, but I don't like the words. And then my friends yesterday were like, yeah, just like cut it up. I was like, can I do that? Can you cut up an old book? Yes. So I started cutting out the beautiful images and then just collaging words onto them. And I became obsessed. So I was like doing it in this feverish way. And then I started laying them out this morning. And part of it was like this alchemy. I was like, yeah, I'm going to take these like messages, but make something nice out of them. So I was putting these like more like firming, but then I laid them out and I was like, oh, these are like oracle cards for like the coming year, for my coming year. So I got really excited. But anyway, even though I was like, we're in the podcast, why am I doing this? I started, as you were telling your story, I started finishing this last one that I'd started that I was working on, speaking of gold. And anyway, this is the first part of what it says. It says, out of its sad lament goes the moth.
Oh, that's beautiful. Jesus.
Yeah. As you were talking about all this stuff of the heaviness that you're moving out of. And yes, this is for you with this beautiful golden fiery energy that you're coming to. And yeah, I'll share a few more. I've got this one is Death of Fear.
Whoa.
Let me see. Paradise Traveler.
Fucking KK. That is you're
Invitation Windows. This one cracks me up because I made it not knowing that I was doing an oracle card for myself for 22. It says request for cock. This one I love. Friend. This was the first one I made. Friends laden with gold. Speaking of gold. Yeah. And there's one in there that, I mean, this one is also for you, but there's another one in there that the words came together and I was like, oh, I have to send that to KK because that's for you.
God.
But I won't tell you right now. It's going to be
okay.
But it's a really fun. You will like it.
I love that you're doing this because I needed more ideas of what to do because I actually just downloaded an art app or like a drawing app on my iPad. It's called Procreate. Everybody I'm sure knows what it is, but I've never fucking heard of it. So of course I'm late to the party, but I even got myself a little electronic pencil. It hasn't come here yet, but I'm like, I felt the need even before this reading, the collage thing, I was like, I need to do something with art. And I was worried for a minute that I was trying to hide from doing my music stuff by trying like this other thing that I didn't really know how to do, which was art crap. And I don't think I am really just, I mean, like I need to do both because like creation is creation and there's plenty of time to do both. But like, I didn't get the pencil for a while because I was like, okay, maybe I need to focus on something. And I was like, no, that's capitalism talking. You don't fucking need to focus on anything. It'll come out when it's supposed to come out, but get your fucking pencil and do. And what my plan was to do like collage type stuff where I would take like, cause I can't draw for shit, and that's fine. I don't care, but what am I going to do creating art? And I'm like, I feel like part of it is taking pieces, like have a photo of a mountain and then cut out the mountain and put like, a waterfall of stars over it or some shit, just like whatever it is where you're just kind of creating new, like what you're doing, but in physical form, but I would do digitally.
I love it.
But now I'm like, ooh, now I want to do physical form stuff because that seems almost more attainable for me because I can like, oh yes, I can use scissors, I can cut out images, the drawing part that I apparently decided to jump into was maybe a little bit more that I can chew, but it's fine because who cares? More pushes to just be creative and do art. And yeah, I love that you said alchemy with this stuff because like you take this old book that's probably racist and depressed as hell and you can like take that energy, cut it up and make new energy with it, with your own. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is because all the words I can think of are like polarity, like good, bad. No, it's not that. It's
right.
Anyway, you're transmuting the more negative colonialistic type toxic masculinity unconsciousness that we are moving away from and transmuting it into balanced, non-polarized stuff.
It was like,
I'm not making it.
Was like the gnat bloated with blood and pride was one of the titles.
Wow.
They were just they felt very puritanical.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
And the music thing is interesting because I just got some syncs that I should be doing more music stuff.
I definitely think that because when I first got that download for myself, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be this fucking famous songwriter or some shit. I think a lot, I don't think yes, maybe, but I think a lot of people are getting the call to do music type stuff because it's vibration. And that's how we're changing. A lot of the stuff is through, like, the dinosaur download, like the shaking of the earth. It's like a vibration of, shaking things up. And it's same with music, just on a different scale.
Oh, that's so interesting.
To me, music feels the most important part of a song. I mean, I'm not dismissing words as important, because I know they are. And that's honestly the thing I'm better with anyway, are the words. So I don't want to like dismiss my own skill, but like to me, music really is, it's sorcery when it's got that beat that just sits in your body, like it shakes shit up. So I'm like, okay, I need to learn how to do both. I got the words thingy down. Now I need to just make sure I can experiment with the vibrational aspect of it. Cause
how fun.
Yeah. So if you fuck it, let's do some music collaboration.
Yeah. I used to have a band that we never performed anywhere. We recorded a few things, but we had our t-shirts. It started with our t-shirts.
Wow.
And we were called the 12-Year-Old Cowards. It was just so much fun. It was
amazing.
It was just like very silly, and we had a really good time. And yeah, I missed that energy. 2022 really does feel like that too. Like a lot of collaborations going to be happening.
Yeah. Well, that number 2 is just so much about collaboration, like, partnership. And it doesn't have to be between two people necessarily, but that's what that number symbolizes, is partnership and balance and collaboration and shit. So that makes a whole lot of fucking sense. That day is a very magical day coming up.
Stay tuned, right?
Seriously, it's going to be a big one.
Next episode, we will definitely talk more about the fact that the two KKs got to meet up IRL in Berkeley, California, where the redwoods were and how beautiful that was and how much interesting and amazing magic. And then we also encountered some other fellow dragons. So that will be fun to talk about.
We're going to get
And I definitely want you to include that song in this episode, please.
God, okay. We'll see what I can throw together, and you know what? That'll help me to sort of get over the first initial, like, oh, I don't know if I should try this. Let's just fucking do something. Okay, this is a thing. Let's do the thing.
Excruciatingly slow build up.
No, this is wonderful.
To this. Okay, that'll do for now, and then I'll make it better. Out of its sad lament goes the moth. Go towards fun.
Go towards fun.
Yeah, those ones, like sad lament, as you can see from what I said about the book, like those were fully formed words.
Yeah.
Fun, I had to like chop up 3 different words to create the word fun. So.
I mean, of course you did. This is a puritanical book. That word does not exist in their vocabulary. Good for you for alchemizing fun.
Thank you for tuning in. And as always, we're where all the podcasts are found, all those places. If you follow us somewhere where you can give us a nice rating or review, please consider doing so, because I think it helps more people find the podcast. And yeah.
It's a good one, KK.
Yeah, make some music. Just relax into that knowledge that you're already dead. So there's only a nice way to go from there.
Roses all the way up. I don't know why.
Exactly. Ooh, I like that. Turtles all the way down and roses all the way up.
The lobby of the space between. Like Beetlejuice, taking a number and a seat. Waiting while the universe weaves your next adventure. You've spent so much time in this lobby, you start to think, surely you've done something wrong. You're missing something totally obvious. Maybe a neon flashing sign pointing out the exit. It was funny watching it happen to Beetlejuice. Now you realize you have absorbed yet another perspective from the mirrors. The The collective is shadow playing, separation, limitation, and fear of death. Everything done in the name of those three things. You are here to help birth them through this death. Just by existing. A lightning rod, a recycling bin, our small and mighty galactic cleanup crew. Not just anyone had the ovaries to sign up for this. Damn, it was just so much funnier when it happened for Beetlejuice.